welcome to the Oak Tree Community Church S.O.A.P Bible Study video series. We have been working our way through the book of Joshua, and we come to week 4 out of 5. And we did a big, like lots of wars and battles and everything last time.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're going to cover what looks to be a large section, but we're going to cut out a bunch of it.
Yeah, we are. We are. Again, like we talked last week, it's not going straight through. Some of the chapters don't move the story forward.
Yeah.
Not that they still have worth to them.
Yeah.
We're just kind of trying to move along a little faster.
Yeah, so a lot of names and locations and numbers and who gets what and all of this, which is really interesting if you're sitting there with a map and you're like, oh, let's,
Exactly. Trying to find rivers and it's still there today.
That would be great for our purposes, just for reading through and trying to get the big picture of what's going on. Not so much. So definitely read it. There are some really neat things buried in those chapters, some of these chapters that we're skipping. So we're absolutely don't want to come across as if they're not worth reading. Just we're not going to do it this time around.
Yeah. So last week we were talking about 2.5 tribes. And this week we still talk about this half a tribe, but we never explained it last week, I think, for what it is. So what is this half tribe?
Well, basically, Manasseh, half of the tribe of Manasseh wanted to stay on the east side of the Jordan River. Right. The other half didn't. And so they're going.
Is that still Manasseh or is that Ephraim?
No, it's still Manasseh. Okay. It is actually still. So the tribe of Manasseh actually ended up being split on either side of Jordan. Ephraim is another separate tribe. They're brothers, literally. Right. Ephraim and Manasseh were Joseph's sons. Right. And so Joseph doesn't get tribal land. He gets 2 sets of tribal land, which is what we're going to find out in this reading.
Yeah, so that's actually where we start. So these guys are having a problem, right? Because they want more land.
Yeah.
And not because they want more land, they have more people.
Yeah.
And basically what Joshua says, you guys are a great military strength. Take it,
yeah. So what happened, well, we need to back up a little bit because typically your oldest son, your firstborn, would get the birthright and would get double inheritance. Right. So if there are 2 sons, it would be split 3 ways.
Right.
And the oldest would get 2 and the youngest would get 1. If there's 4 sons, it gets split 5 ways. Doesn't really matter. He's just going to get double of whatever anybody else gets. Well, Reuben was the firstborn of Jacob. Yep. Reuben ticked off dad, and so he's not going to get it.
Right.
Okay.
Oh.
Simeon.
It's a good reason to tick him off.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Simeon and Levi both tick off dad, so they're not going to get it. Judah's next in line. He's 4th, but he's next in line. He gets something special. In Genesis chapter 49, when Jacob is making all the prophecies, Judah gets the gets the rulership over Israel. This is why Messiah comes from the tribe of Judah. The scepter will not leave the house of Judah. Right. But he doesn't get the double portion. He doesn't get the birthright. He doesn't get all that. Joseph ends up getting that. Because what happens is that Jacob had already thought Joseph was dead. And so when Joseph shows up and he has 2 sons, Jacob adopts those 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, as his own. And so in essence, Joseph gets double portion by his 2 sons going through.
Right. Oh, he did save the family.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's not worth it, but
he was also like 11th. Right,
11 out of 12.
Brothers,
right?
With Benjamin being the last.
Yeah, he was 11 out of 12.
Yeah, a ways down the chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when it comes to the 12 tribes of tribal land, there's several different ways that the 12 tribes get broken out in different parts of the Bible. When it comes to the land, Joseph doesn't get land, Levi doesn't get land. But Joseph's sons get the 2, so they make up the other 2, and Joseph, as a patriarch, gets double.
Right. Got it?
Ta-da!
It's going to be on the quiz. All right. So
Say
here's
that
my
10 times
version. My version is we got to divide up the land. And what Moses said was how do they decide? How do they decide? They draw lots.
Yeah.
Right. But even before that, they got to figure out what do they got.
Yeah.
What's in the land? So they pick people from each tribe and tell them go out and make a map.
Yeah.
And figure it out, and then now we have something to divide up.
Right.
So you would think that they would, on this map, there'd be rivers and water and hills and some natural resources type of deal. And,
Yeah.
And you do your best, and they're brothers. There's going to be some infighting. That's going to happen.
So Judah gets most of the southern. Ephraim is a big tribe. Gets a lot of the central. So we're really talking about the northern half.
Yeah, splitting that.
What happens to the northern half for the most part?
Yeah. So that's a lot of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And then they do something special too. There's something called a refuge city.
Yeah.
That Moses declared. So what's going on with that?
So basically, there's only going to be. It's not like we have today. There's churches everywhere. There's going to be one place that is the center of worship, and that's Shiloh. And it was for hundreds of years until David moved the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. Shiloh was the place where they met with God, right? And that's where the priests worked. But the Levites lived all over the nation. They were sort of like the in between the people.
And you talked about that last week, that they were in special cities.
They had their locations, right? So one of the things that God did is sometimes accidents happen. And, you accidentally kill somebody. We're not talking about murder. We're talking about what today we would call manslaughter, negligent homicide, that type of thing. It's an accident.
A mistake, but it happened and you're at fault.
Right. Yeah. Right. So what happens if I kill somebody? Well, the penalty for killing somebody is death.
Right.
So God says, but if it's an accident, I still have to be just. There still has to be,
a penalty.
Yeah. But I'm also gracious and merciful. Mm-hmm. So on each side of the Jordan River, there are going to be 3 cities of refuge that are going to be manned by Levites. And if you accidentally kill somebody, however, it doesn't really matter, the family's going to be out to get you.
Right.
for good reason. Run as fast and hard as you can to one of these cities. And as long as you stay in that city, you're safe. They cannot come in and get you. You leave the city, you're fair game. But you stay there and you are safe. And you live there until the high priest dies.
Yeah.
Once the current high priest dies, then you're off the hook completely. It's over. Even the family can't take revenge against you.
So what is the thought process there?
Well, based on what I can tell, and this is from some reading and stuff, God still has to be just. There still has to be a penalty for somebody's got to die, right? But because it's an accident, God says, I'm still gracious, I'm still merciful. We're not going to execute you, but the high priest, in a sense, one person wrote it this way, a couple people wrote it this way, that there's a level of atonement. The high priest's value. The high priest has been overseeing the sacrifices of the people. So in a sense, and we've got to be very careful with this, but in a sense, the high priest, when he dies, that almost acts as a kind of sacrifice for all of these unintentional killings. And so you could have multiple people that over the span of the high priest's life have been living in these cities of refuge, and when the high priest dies, it's like it cleanses. It almost cleanses. It's done. You can go back to your families. You can go back to your tribal lands, which is really the key. Your whole family's probably moved in to live with you now. You can go back to your family and tribal land, and the new high priest starts
a new cycle.
It's really an interesting part of the Mosaic law, but it shows God's holiness, his justice, but also his grace and his mercy.
Yeah, good. Okay, so we have a map being drawn. I think there's seven tribes that they still need to divide up land. But then kind of a cool thing happens. If we remember, there's 2.5 tribes that are on the west side of the Jordan, but that's not where they live.
Right.
And they fought, and they had asked Moses. They want their land on the east side. Mm-hmm. And Moses said, "That's fine, but when the time comes, you need to show up."
Yeah.
They showed up.
Yeah, they showed up. They fought. They did their duty.
Yep. And now it's time for them to go back.
Yeah.
So they were treated appropriately, given gold, silver, animals, a number of other things.
Yep.
And now they're going back. And you would think, how hard is this? But it seems like a big deal. So these guys went and they made it like to the west side of the Jordan River, and they decided to build an altar.
Yeah.
And their reasoning for that is, hey, we're going to be on the other side. Yeah, it's just a river, but it's a pretty big river.
Don't forget about us.
And we're going to get forgotten about.
Yeah.
So we want this as a reminder for them that we were here for you and we will always be here for you.
Right.
So they do that and they leave. Well, lo and behold, people come up and see this altar and they immediately think these people went against God.
Yep.
They built an altar. We need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right? Because that was the penalty.
Yeah. I mean, they built an altar that was not where the ark was. It's not in Shiloh. It's not, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're obviously following false gods. They've already been contaminated.
Right.
Go kill them.
Fortunately, that was the second thing. But the first thing, they sent a delegation and actually asked, what's up?
They sent a delegation. Well, they met at Shiloh where the priests were,
Yeah.
where they could talk to God and find out this is what we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And then they sent this delegation. Why did you do this? Why are you leaving Jehovah? Why are you, turning your back on God? And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second.
Yeah. So kind of a bizarre ending. But okay.
But it worked out.
Yeah,
They did exactly what they were supposed to do, and everything worked out. Sadly, that's not going to be the story, moving forward every time. There's a lot of civil war that we will see in other books.
Yeah.
But this one they did right.
Yeah, and I think at the end of our reading, we find out, God knows the truth.
Yeah.
They were like, our heart is in the right place. We are with him.
Yep.
With him always.
Yep. Thanks for checking.
Yeah, yeah. But it was
we're glad about your concern, but
almost a huge unnecessarily destruction that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But kind of an interesting way to leave. So we kind of end this week's reading with everybody has their land now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they don't have it yet.
Not yet.
But they have their allotment, and they know where they should be. The 2.5 guys, they're gone now. We're scaling down from war.
Yep.
But we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see. There's still some things that need to happen.
Starting to become
a nation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's one other piece in here that I think is really interesting. It's all the way back in chapter 14. This guy named Caleb.
Oh, right.
Right? And Caleb and Joshua, we sort of hinted at this last time.
Right.
Caleb and Joshua were the two spies all the way back in Numbers that said, God will take the,
Yeah, so when Moses sent the spies out, these were the two that said,
years
we
ago.
can win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Caleb comes to Joshua and says, so you remember 45 years ago, we were having this conversation with Moses, and Moses said you could have this piece of land. He's like, I know I'm 85, but man, I'm feeling good. I'm ready to take it. Joshua says, do it, man. Take it.
Yeah, it's yours.
We're talking longtime friends, decades. Right. They've both followed God. And it's really neat.
So that wouldn't have just been Caleb, right? It would have been his
tribe, his family. Yeah, right. His family. But Caleb is the patriarch of his little sub clan.
Right.
Right. And he says, "Listen, I was 40 years old when we came here the first time. I had to march with these people for 40 years, and now I've spent 5 years, conquering everybody else's land. I'm ready for my peace.
Yeah.
And I'm
You
still
gotta
strong
take it.
enough to take it. And Joshua says, go for it, man. Take it.
Yeah.
Which is just a really cool wrap up of that piece of watching somebody who has had to suffer everybody else's stupidity and everybody else's, sin for so long.
Right.
He's finally getting what he literally 4.5 decades ago, Moses said, yeah, you can have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it is, and like we were saying, some of the cool parts, and that is a part that is in the reading.
That is in the reading. There's a little bit more about Caleb, though, in chapter 15 that we're not including in the reading, so you might want to look that up on your own.
Ooh, that will be on the quiz. Nice.
Yeah. So that brings us through the end of chapter 22. A little bit more to do next time.
I think we finish up next time.
And we
right?
finish up next time, and in fact, we'll finish the whole generation, which actually takes us into Judges a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really interesting. We'll save that for next time. Enjoy this. Of course, feel free to read the other stuff that's not on the little card or not in the reading, the official reading. But just go through it. This is really good stuff. It shows God's faithfulness, and even in a people that are not totally faithful to God. Well, that's an old story.
Yeah.
God is always faithful, and it's just really cool to read that stuff. So pass it along with your friends and family. Send any questions or comments or insights. You're like, oh, I wish you guys would have talked about this. Send it over. We can talk about it with at least you, if not bringing it up on a future video. And until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye.